Hey, how's it going? And welcome to another Social Links study, the previously unnamed series where I check out various social links and confidants from the Persona series and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly character-specific stories this franchise has to offer. For the first episode of the new year, I wanted to start things off right by talking about a link that I think is both really good and also happens to be under a lot of people's radars. There's a possibility you've just never seen or done this link before, since it is a Persona 3 portable and female main character exclusive, and it is of course Saori Hasegawa, Persona 3 Portable's Hermit Arcana. Saori is introduced pretty early on in the game on May 8th when you're asked to join either the Library Committee or the Health Committee. Similar to Kazushi from the male route, she fulfills the same role regardless of which club you join, so the choice really just determines a change of scenery, some minor dialogue differences, and where she hangs out at. Saori is introduced as mature student and immediately provides an interesting character hook, that being how she's actually 2 years older than the main character, despite them both being juniors. Beyond that though, it's also revealed she studied abroad for 2 years, and is also the oldest student currently at Gekkoukan. To speak purely on her appearance, Saori has one of the more low-key character designs in the game. She doesn't really have any extravagant anime features like blue hair, and perfectly captures the vibe that she's a bit older than the other students, kind of similar to Mitsuru. And Saori is kind of just cute in general. Complementing her unassuming appearance, she presents herself as a soft-spoken and responsible big sister-like character, who enjoys taking care of others as demonstrated by her willingness to help out in the health committee, or lend other students her notes. Contrasting her mature exterior, Saori is ironically very mentally immature, or perhaps innocent is the better way of putting it. She's the kind of person who really struggles to connect with others despite her friendly nature. She also allows herself to get pushed around by others very easily, and in some cases just straight up used, but doesn't really think much of it. This is demonstrated in her rank 2 when she lends another student some notes, only for the student to return in rank 3, explain that the notes were lost, and scurry away without much of a reaction from her. Rather than getting mad about what just happened, she instead states that there's just no point in complaining about it. You get the impression that she's somebody who really just doesn't have that much experience with people in general, and as such hasn't really come up with defense mechanisms for dealing with those who would seek to exploit her. I'd imagine for many, myself included, this is probably the most relatable aspect of the character. But beyond that, she also struggles with understanding romantic intent, as during her rank 4 when a boy asks her to go on a karaoke date, despite not really knowing the dude, she decides to go anyways. When the main character asks why she's so unwilling to stand up for herself, Saori explains she doesn't really have opinions of her own. She's somebody who wants to be needed by others, and further exemplifies her very laissez-faire approach to her own existence. This is ordinarily a character trait I'm not really crazy about, but I think I give Saori a pass on it since the character is so much more than just that one quirk, and her story is ultimately about getting over that kind of mentality. In fact, immediately following this exchange, she asks if it's wrong to think that way, showing she is aware enough to realize that way of thinking might be flawed. Things start to get very heated and serious in her rank 5. A female student accuses Saori of getting involved with her boyfriend, claiming that Saori was the one who asked him out. It gets nasty pretty fast, with the other girl calling her a skank, a bitch, and ultimately smacking her across the face. Despite the physical assault that just took place, Saori continues to keep up her passive attitude, not seeming to think much of it and instead actually apologizing to the main character for having to see that. This gets into another one of my favorite aspects of the link, the fairly realistic school drama she ends up getting involved in. Persona is no stranger to having conflicts centered around bullying. Fuka's introduction in Persona 3 comes to mind, but something about how it's handled here makes it very believable. Other students stop going to the nurse's office or turn around in GTFO when they notice Saori there. People have stopped talking to her, and they won't even acknowledge her greetings. The worst part is the fact that she thinks she's not even really getting bullied and that people are just acting distant, but that's obviously not the case. Social isolation is sadly an extremely common and harmful bullying tactic, and one of the most cruel things about it is that the victim might end up blaming themselves for what's going on, which is exactly what happens with Saori. As per usual, she continues to only think of others and is mostly concerned about the reputation hit the main character might face by being associated with her. Sadly, things go from bad to worse in rank 7 as the duo are called into the school's office. Saori is presented a magazine showing her picture in the headline, "The Continued Corruption of Our Nation's Youth, Rampant Sexuality in G-High." As the name implies, the article doesn't shine a great light on Saori or the school, and it's revealed a certain somebody informed the teacher about this magazine. I wonder who it could have been. This scene is rough. It's difficult seeing a person as sweet as Saori get grilled over something that's not even true. She gets accused of the whole gambit, fooling around with male students, having a bad attitude, you name it. Saori ultimately receives a suspension, and it's revealed she did in fact take a picture for a magazine as recommended by a girl in her class that she wanted to help out. Ironically, her own desire to just help others and make friends has led to her being harassed and ostracized. And I think that's what makes this one of the sadder links from across the entire series. It feels unfair to see a character this innocent be lied about and have no real way of fighting back. And it's also a sort of universally relatable kind of frustration. At some point in all of our lives, we've dealt with situations that were just complete bullshit, really. Whether it was at work, school, or in our personal lives. And we've all had to just kind of grin and bear it or risk making the situation worse. It makes Saori into a character that you really just want to be there for. And I would say, honestly, that's one of the biggest determining factors in whether or not I think a social link is good. How much you actually want to see the character's problem be resolved. And yeah, I do want to help you, Saori. I want to help you very much, you poor thing. In Rank 8, it's revealed that Saori is going to be transferred to another school far away, and her existence just keeps getting more and more depressing. One of my favorite things about the link is how it manages to say and imply a lot without getting overly expository. Like when she offhandedly mentions she doesn't have much luggage to pack, and how her room is apparently empty. It paints a picture of a character with a deeply saddening home life that's never fully explained. We know her relationship with her parents is shitty at best, considering they apparently called her an ungrateful child and a shame to her family. But beyond that, we never get to meet her parents or see what her living situation is like. This gives the link a certain mysterious allure that I think is missing from many others, and it provides the player with a lot of opportunities to draw their own conclusions about her mental state and why she acts the way she does. In the penultimate rank, the rumors and nasty comments about Saori continue to spread, but rather than allowing it to continue uncontested, the main character comes up with an idea, giving Saori a chance to stand up for herself to the entire school. By using the school's announcement system, the two hope to at least try and clear her name. And I mean, at this point, what does she have to lose, right? Seeing Saori finally express herself to everyone is very cathartic, but fitting in with her nature, she doesn't just let them all have it. Instead, she just firmly states the magazine was lying, and she ultimately apologizes for the trouble she caused. Although it would have been interesting to see Saori just totally rip into the people who caused her so much grief, it's really just not in her character to be that way, regardless of the hardship others put her through. In the final rank, the two characters say their goodbyes as Saori prepares to leave for her new school. She affirms her newfound resolve to live the way she wants, and comes to terms with the fact that her life is just that. Hers. She keeps a recording of her school broadcast as a reminder of how she should be, that being a person who's not afraid to speak her mind, hold her own opinions, and of course, not just cave in to the whims of others. Her final gift to you before shaking hands and parting ways is a copy of that very same recording. If I were to end the video here, I'd have a lot of great things to say about the link. I think it manages to cover a lot of really interesting themes and issues in its time span. Not letting yourself get pushed around, the effect emotional neglect has on a person, and more are all shown. It'd be a satisfying and bittersweet ending, but the story doesn't end here, and the link actually does something very interesting. At the very end of the game, you're given the chance to visit the various social link characters, or otherwise just get some closure on the events that happened. Saori's link is no exception, as you're able to visit the nurse's office to receive a letter from her. It starts off as you'd expect, just a letter telling you that she's grown accustomed to her new life, she has new friends, but she misses you a lot. Ordinarily, that would be that, but Saori's link does something very unexpected as she delivers one last bit of backstory. As it turns out, in the past, Saori did have somebody she was in love with, and according to her, she made him suffer and forced him into a corner. This person, who Saori says is no longer around, is heavily implied to have killed himself. Her parents blamed her for what happened, and she explains that's the reason why she went to school overseas to begin with. Although, in actuality, Saori never went to school at all due to her feelings of isolation, and she was instead taken in by a church and spent her days praying for this lost love's soul. Her situation was so dire, she considered killing herself as well, but never went through with it. She apologizes for not having the strength to tell you the truth, but ultimately is glad that she's able to live the way she wants, despite the fear that independence brings. She wishes you well, and the letter ends. This last scene involving her is what pushes this link from being very good to legitimately one of my favorites from across the whole series, since it totally recontextualizes a character you thought you had figured out. Upon revisiting it, you realize the link was left vague on purpose to deliver this one last punch to the gut, and while it's a difficult read, it also explains a lot. Saori wasn't just somebody who went to another school and ended up a bit socially stunted. She essentially spent most of her high school years away from seemingly any developmental influence. No parents, no school. She's a person who ended up stuck in between being an adult and a child, and as a result never grew an independent mindset. It's little details like that which make the story and character really stand out, since you pick up on a lot of things you might have missed earlier, now with a full understanding of the situation. But the link has one more devious implication that you might miss unless you really read between the lines. It's just that something about the entire story is slightly off. And at least to me, the biggest source of confusion is her parents. Her parents are only alluded to throughout the link, but every time we do hear about them, they seem like just awful fucking people. Being strict with your child since you want them to succeed is understandable, but they seem to do stuff that's just odd. For example, when Mr. Ekoda is grilling Saori, he says that her parents warned the school to be careful about her. In the rank following, she says her parents called her an ungrateful child and a shame to her family. After the incident when Saori's love killed himself, her parents blamed her for it, and had her sent overseas because of it. So what's the deal with these people? Why are they so hard on a sweet girl like Saori? And why would they punish her over a tragedy that affected her more than them? If you were a teenager and your boyfriend or girlfriend killed themselves, the last thing a parent would probably do is punish their kid over it. Something weird is going on here, and I think this is the Social Link's final secret attack. This is all speculative, obviously, but I think there's somehow something even more insidious going on in this link that is only really alluded to. So bear with me on this one. I'm going full Pepe Sylvia here.
Take a look at this. Jesus Christ.
In her final rank, Saori offhandedly asks about first loves. She says that her first love was her uncle when she was a little girl, and that's the reason why she wanted to hurry up and become an adult. Although now she looks back on those days and misses them, she says that maybe it's for the best your first love never comes true. Seems like an innocent enough anecdote about her past, but when you combine it with the information provided in her letter, it all becomes a little bit more Now, I'm not saying anything definitive here, and I would also like to stress that I am completely insane, but what if her first love, that being her uncle, and the love who killed himself, were one and the same? Based on what we're told, we know Saori was coddled by the adults in her life and had a difficult time relating to people her own age. Maybe Saori's previously mentioned idea of growing up had an adult implication. And without realizing this is something very, very no bueno, her desire to be mature led her to at least try and get involved with this person, romantically or otherwise. This first love of hers was either unwilling to reciprocate, or in an even more fucked up scenario, did, but the guilt ultimately proved to be too much for him and he took his own life. After all, Saori herself says she made this person suffer and forced him into a corner. But we're never told what that actually entails. And it's also just such a weirdly specific phrase. It really implies Saori did something to this guy that would have completely jeopardized his whole life. No matter how you look at it, this theoretical scenario would be very, very bad for everyone involved. And it would also do a lot to explain why her parents acted the way they did. It starts to make a lot more sense when you think about it in terms of a look at what you did kind of scenario. In their minds, it was their daughter's actions that deprived them of a loved one, and thus she was just sent away to parts unknown. Once again, I don't know if this was the intention behind the link, but the pieces seem to kind of fall into place here. And just from a writing perspective, why even include some of this info if it just has nothing to do with anything? Why mention her uncle being her first love? A person being pushed into a corner and killing themselves, and her parents acting in such a way? The only thing keeping me from fully advocating for this is that it's very grim, even by the series' own standards. A story like that, presented as is, probably would have just gotten the axe in development for being just a little bit too much. I can't definitively say one way or another if this was the intention. Many other links in the series are pretty cut and dry. There's a character, a problem, and a resolution, but I think Saori's is a rare example of one that you can spend a long time wondering about when it's all said and done. Being too vague is obviously a bad thing. A mystery with no clues kind of just sucks, but I think this link managed to find the right balance. Even after you finish the link and read the final scene, there's still a sort of intrigue to Saori as a person that you never entirely figure out. out. The other thing that makes the link so memorable is just how sad it really is. There's a lot of links and confidants from the series that genuinely get an emotional rise out of me, but hers is unique since I find the entire character's whole existence to just be kind of heartbreaking. When you stop and think about it, aside from Akinari, who's quite literally dying, Saori might have the most unfortunate story of any social link character in the whole game. The entire school misunderstands her, she got shipped off to God knows where and skipped school for 2 years. She only seems to have one friend. Apparently she has nothing in her room? She gets actively bullied and lied about. Her parents have essentially disowned her. The person she loved killed himself. Like, goddamn, are you okay? I really just want to give this poor girl a hug. But at the absolute end of it all, there is something good to be found, and that's her future. She has new friends, she's more willing to express herself, and she's embraced her autonomy despite how scary it can be. She's alive and happy about it, and I think this ending really encapsulates why Persona 3 is my favorite game. It's the message about finding the good in life and the value in living. This character has gone through a lot, and some of her hardship we'll never fully understand, but the important thing is that she's looking forward to tomorrow. And I think that serves as a great end to a great social link. But yeah, that has been another episode of Social Link Study. Thank you all so much for watching, and especially a big thank you to all my channel members. Yes, look at all these fine people. If you would like your name to appear alongside these titans of humanity, become a channel member for $2.99. But yeah, this ended up being quite the video. I did not expect to have this much to say about Saori. You know, it's been forever since I've done her social link, but I remember it being pretty good when I did it a couple years ago, but when I went and rewatched it for this, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I have way more to say about this character than I expected. But yeah, I'm hoping to do this series more regularly. I really enjoy making these just analyses of social links and confidants. I don't know who I'm gonna cover next. I haven't done a Persona 5 character on this series yet, so maybe one of them. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.